What's up guys, my name is Ace, and now that the CoD Next event is over and we've seen actual full matches of gameplay in Black Ops 7, today I wanted to share my updated thoughts and impressions on the game. Basically, how I'm feeling about things before getting into the beta, where of course I will update my impressions again, because at that point I will finally have my hands on the game. So keep that in mind. I still haven't played Black Ops 7 for myself, but we can definitely judge several things at least from the gameplays that we've seen. And I've got to say, after watching some actual raw gameplay, I'm definitely feeling more optimistic than I was before seeing the gameplay. And I think the biggest reason for that is the maps. I was generally really liking what I was seeing map-wise, especially compared to Black Ops 6, where maps were one of my biggest gameplay-related complaints with that game. That was one of the biggest issues I had, specific to the game itself, not talking about the big picture, like franchise-wide issues. And it seems the complaints I had about the maps in Black Ops 6 have been totally alleviated based on what I've seen. For the most part, these maps seem to have a little bit more room to breathe. I think the key here is there is definitely some more lane definition. So if you're in the left-hand lane, for instance, it's highly unlikely you're gonna get shot by somebody that's all the way in the right-hand lane of the map. Additionally, there seemed to be a decent variety in the types of layouts that were present. Like, they all seem to have the same general 3-lane structure, but when it comes to how you maneuver within those lanes and inside areas versus outside areas, and the different choke points and angles that you're getting, there was a lot of variety when it comes to that. And it seems like they've really designed these intentionally with the wall bounce mechanic in mind. I was noticing a lot while watching people play. I was actively analyzing, like, where could I wall bounce right now to get from point A to point B? It looks like they've really designed them in a way where your wall bounces can be used to take some interesting routes, or just make an interesting play that you otherwise wouldn't be able to make. And I do think that's going to add a nice layer of depth to the gameplay experience on these maps. Additionally, something we already kind of knew since we've seen a lot of clips, but it was just reinforced while watching these gameplays, is these maps are beautiful. I'm really liking the color palettes and the insane amount of visual variety we're seeing on a map-to-map basis. At least when it comes to the maps they played at this event, no two map really looked the same or even very similar visually. There were a very wide range of color palettes, and those color palettes were very colorful as well. It wasn't just a lot of grays and browns and the typical Avalon sort of aesthetic that we've been used to in Black Ops 6, so I find that to be quite exciting as well. Although, of course, how the maps play I think are more important. Aesthetics still do come into play to some degree when it comes to the overall player experience. Next, let's talk a bit more about the wall bounce mechanic, because this is something where after seeing some gameplay and seeing it used contextually in the gameplay, I'm feeling more positive about this. It was something that was a bit up in the air for me before seeing actual gameplay, but based on what I've seen so far, it seems like the wall bounces are going to have a somewhat similar feel to jetpacks, but they're significantly more situational. So it doesn't seem like you're going to be seeing just wall bounce after wall bounce. Every single gunfight you're getting into, people are bouncing off walls like crazy. In fact, I wasn't even noticing that much wall bouncing going on, especially not in gunfights. It seemed like it was used much more for just navigation. Because when you do utilize a wall bounce, it does make you fairly predictable. Once you see that somebody is bouncing off of that wall, the path that they're going to be taking in the air is going to be quite predictable to aim at and shoot. It's not like jetpacks where you can like change direction in air. As far as I could see, at least, it doesn't look like you can suddenly change direction after hitting a wall bounce. So it seems like there's a decent amount of risk attached to doing that, but it provides options and it opens up potential routes or interesting plays that can be made. Again, that goes hand in hand with the map design, but it does appear the maps were very deliberately designed with the wall bounce in mind. And therefore, as somebody that actually kind of liked the jetpack Call of Duty games, I'm liking what I'm seeing when it comes to the wall bounce, but I also suspect this is going to be a fairly polarizing mechanic in the game. I think many people are just going to be immediately turned off by that, and I totally get that. A lot of people didn't like the jetpack CODs. That's not the style of movement they want to see in Call of Duty, and therefore I wouldn't fault anybody for not liking the wall bounce. But for me personally, I'm into it. I do like it. Now, going a little further into the movement, I think this is something where I really just need to get my hands on it for myself to judge it fully, but it did appear that some of the movement looked a little bit more tight, less floaty, as a lot of people like to call it, than Black Ops 6. Especially with the slides, it seemed like there was less acceleration initially, and it seems like they cranked up the friction a little bit more as well. Like, you can't maintain that slide for quite as long of a distance as you can in Black Ops 6, unless you're using the lightweight perk. I was seeing some pretty crazy sliding when using the lightweight perk. But again, I think this is something where I just need to update my opinions once I get my hands on it, because it might end up feeling very different from what it looked like while watching other people play. After that, I was liking the looks of the gunplay. Treyarch did mention that they toned down a lot of the visual noise while in gunfights, and I was definitely seeing that throughout the gameplay. It seems like there's far less muzzle smoke and muzzle flash, even when not using a suppressor. There also doesn't really seem to be any unnecessary visual recoil. Like, there's recoil there, but it's not unnecessary visual recoil where your sights are just bouncing all over the place almost arbitrarily. It seems quite controlled. It's much more reminiscent of many older Call of Duty games, and I really like the looks of that. Time to kill wise, well, it did appear to be quite fast depending on whose perspective you were watching. From what I can tell, it's actually the same as Black Ops 6, and the reason it just looks so fast is, first off, many of the players there are like absolute top tier players. Like, there were even some active pros and retired pros there, and obviously their aim is just going to be ridiculously on point. And then on top of that, they were playing on an extremely low latency environment, so it is kind of hard to judge exactly what that's going to look like on our ends at home, while playing with significantly higher latency values than what they were experiencing at the event. But statistically speaking, at least, looking at roughly how many shots it was taking to kill, it looks to be very comparable to Black Ops 6, and I like the time to kill in Black Ops 6. After that, health bars are back, and I kind of like the health bars. I get it, it's not for everyone. They did say there will be an option to turn those off, so if you're not into seeing those health bars, you can turn them off for yourself. I can personally take them or leave them, but I kind of like the looks of them in Black Ops 7, so I think I will be leaving that setting on for myself. Then streaks, based on what I saw, seemed quite powerful again, especially a lot of the aerial streaks. That's obviously going to be map dependent to a degree. Like the VTOL, for instance, was quite powerful. Saw some gameplay with the Rhino, that looked pretty solid as well. One streak that I am a little bit concerned about, this is one area where I'm going to put this sort of in the bad section, or at least a section where I'm going to be keeping tabs on it, is that wall hack sniper streak. This is the one called the Gravemaker, and with this, you can see enemy players through walls, and you can shoot through, it looks like, quite a few walls and get a one-shot kill with it. Now, to keep this in check, at least to a degree, you have to charge up your shot first before firing. So you can't just like tap fire as if you're using a regular sniper rifle or anything. But even with that in mind, this did seem a little too much on the cheesy side, even for a score streak, because I don't know what the counterplay to this is going to look like. Outside of perhaps running cold-blooded, I assume that'll make sure they can't see you through walls. But I don't know if there's really any sort of soft counters to this, or is it basically just going to be, if you're not using cold-blooded, you're just going to be randomly dropping dead throughout a match, as people call this streak in. So time will have to tell on this. I think I, once again, need to get my hands on it. I also have to get killed by it a few times to see what that looks like from the perspective of the people dying to it. But I will say I'm a little concerned about this, and I definitely want to keep an eye on it. After that, while I didn't get to see like all of the attachments and how they all work and everything, I was able to find a few different clips at least of people scrolling through some of the attachments on some of the guns. And from what I can see, it looks like they've provided a little more variety to attachments compared to Black Ops 6. It seems like they included some more overlap with certain stats. So if you want to improve a particular stat on your gun, instead of the way they had it in Black Ops 6, where there was often just one attachment slot that would have any effect on that stat, they've now made it so, in some cases at least, there are various attachments in different slots that can improve the same stat. So it looks like we'll once again be able to stack a couple attachments here or there to improve a particular stat, like your accuracy or your hipfire spread or your tactical stance spread, for instance. And I liked what I saw so far, but again, I didn't get to see the full picture on that. And also, they didn't have the detailed stat screen available in that build of the game, even though it will be there at launch. I should also mention, it's the same thing with the firing range. That wasn't available in this build that they were playing, so we didn't get to see the new and improved firing range, and I'm curious to see what that looks like and how much of an improvement we're seeing over the previous one. But then outside of that, just a few random things I was noticing. The audio cues, I really like the sound of them. The new hit marker sound, I really like that. Same with the kill sound, the headshot kill sound. I really like the sound of that one based on what I was hearing. Even the little guitar riff for leveling up a weapon, for instance. I was liking how that sounded as well. Then visually, I really like the look of the heads-up display. The menus are also much nicer looking than Black Ops 6 in my eyes, even though the general layout is very similar. I like the vibes of this, at least aesthetically. I was a little disappointed to see they've once again brought back that background menu animation where the character models are like running around and the camera's changing angles like crazy. I don't like that a whole lot. I'm not a fan of that. I would much prefer a static scene where the camera's just in one spot and you have all the operators in the background. That one's a little nitpicky, but it's just something that I find to be mildly annoying while sitting in menus, and just seeing like constant movement and the camera just switching all over the place. Not a huge fan of that. Also, circling back to the UI a little bit, I did notice with the minimaps, I think the minimap may be zoomed in a little too far for my taste, especially considering the fact that there's no forward intel perk in the game. Now, perhaps that's a perk they plan on adding post-launch. And if they do, hopefully it's one of the earlier perks in the game, since I really like having the ability to zoom out that minimap a bit more. Also, on the topic of perks, I've already shared my thoughts on this in the past, and it didn't really change much watching these gameplays. I'm not a big fan of how they've laid out the perks in the various tiers this time around. They did make a few adjustments already since the initial reveal, where I also made a video talking about that. They did make some slight improvements, like moving Looper to tier 2, moving Dexterity to tier 3, and then I believe moving Scavenger to tier 1. Although that particular change I'm not a big fan of. But overall, I do think this is going to be an area where I'm not going to be a fan of it, and I'm likely going to have some feedback on it toward the end of the beta, but I'm going to wait to get my hands on it to share some more. I just wanted to make sure I was being clear up front here that I do think there is going to be some room for improvement when it comes to how their perks are set up. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I feel like those are the main things that I was able to judge just by watching some people play the gameplay. Oh, I guess I didn't mention the new game mode, Overload. That looks pretty interesting as well. You have to pick up an objective gadget and then escort that to one of 2 enemy portals that's toward their spawn. So this is kind of just like an updated, slightly different take on Uplink from Advanced Warfare. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It is important to know while watching gameplay from this event, we don't get to see things like what the connection quality is going to look like, or what the matchmaking is going to look like. I assume it's going to be pretty much exactly the same as recent years, but obviously at a closed event like this, we don't get to see what that looks like and how that's present. Same thing with lobby disbanding. It's likely lobbies will continue to disband. I haven't seen any mention of them changing anything when it comes to that. A lot of us were hoping they'd make an announcement like that at CoD Next, but that didn't happen, so I'm assuming lobby disbanding will be there. So there's definitely still things, primarily like franchise-wide things, that will hold back some of my excitement for the game. But looking at the game in a vacuum, a lot of my gameplay specific concerns have been alleviated, and this genuinely looks like the type of gameplay that I'm going to be into. As I said, I do think it's also going to be a little bit on the polarizing side. I can see why people won't be into that, but I'm actually really looking forward to hopping into the beta and getting my hands on things and providing some updated impressions from there. And with that, I'm curious to hear from you guys. For those of you guys that have watched some raw gameplay now of Black Ops 7's multiplayer, how are you feeling about things overall? Are you feeling more optimistic than you were before this event? Less optimistic maybe? Or are you at the point where you've just so burnt out on the franchise that you just don't care either way? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.